Council. This is a regular City Council meeting. At this point, I will turn in the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance over to our Mayor. If you'll please stand.
Please bow with me. Lord, as we move into the holiday season, we have so much to be thankful for. We have a great city. We have a great community that we live in. We ask that you continue to watch over us and bless us as you have for a very long time. We ask you also look at our nation and somehow lend a healing hand to that, where we can all come together for a common cause and cut all the garbage that's been going on. We ask that you bless our town, our staff, our council, and help them to make good and right decisions tonight. And we do all we do in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank the Mayor for his words and leading us in the pledge.
Thank you.
Let's see if we're all here tonight. Kathy, call the roll.
Mayor Shute.
Here.
Carlisle.
Here.
Ivy.
Here.
Lawrence.
Here.
Stewart.
Here.
Detman.
Here. If there's anyone out here that has any business that is not on tonight's agenda that you would like the City Council to hear, please come forward and see Clerk Haley. She'll have a little piece of paper for you to fill out, and we'll call you up a little bit later in the agenda. So that's anything that you may want to discuss with us that is not on tonight's agenda. Mayor's report.
Just one thing I'd like to announce, and we have the Historical Society here with us. They're taking on a venture, just a small one, or contemplating, I should say, about restoring the Santa Rosa Hotel, which would be fantastic if we could get it done. It's just a piece of history that as we do grow as a city, as a reminder of our past and a good part of our past. But Vicki Jarvis is here. She is on the board itself. Marvin Kahn and is also on the board, actually on the advisory board that's putting this together, and they've engaged a consulting company that's been talking to community leaders, interested individuals in the community, and they're doing it this week. Are they doing it next week too, Vicki? So they'll be around for a while. So if you're interested and want to have input, get with Vicki. They're assisting in the possible fundraising side and the viability of the project itself. So I think it's a great thing. I think, Vicki, you've got most of the city council lined up. But if anybody else is interested and would like to have input, or thinks somebody needs to have input, get with Vicki at Frames and Images, right around the corner. Big sale going on, so head there anyway. So thought I'd give you a little plug for all the hard work you're doing. But
And they can contact us at the Historical Society.
yep, or Marvin, get with Marvin too. But we appreciate your efforts in looking at that and tackling it and seeing if there's a possibility that something can be done with that. So we have we'll discuss a couple other buildings that the city has tonight, but I think it's an admirable venture that you guys are taking on, and it's a big project. So
Good luck.
It's a very big project. Thank you. Thank you for your confidence.
Absolutely.
That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Council members' concerns, comments, and liaison reports. We'll start on the left. Charlie.
Okay, yeah, I just want to give a shout out to our fire department. We have fires out there virtually every day, but it's only the big ones that make the newspaper or make the news. We had one of those this past week over behind the South Publix, and our fire department did an excellent job containing that fire within the one building. And that's really huge because it's jobs and it's people's lives as well as just the building. So I just want to give a shout out to the fire department. Thank you for doing a good job.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Mark?
No report.
I just want to thank everybody that participated in the Veterans Day thing. It was kind of small, but it was good. It was good. So for all those that came out and supported that, I just want to say thank you.
I'd say went to the Halloween on the Circle. That was very well attended. Actually, it was crowded, but it was a very nice project that went on there, and a lot of work, and people did very, very well there. And Veterans Day I missed. I had that at the college. I had to be there. So
Yeah.
that's it for me.
Excellent. I'd like to recognize J. Michael Swain. That's the senior, if you will, or the father, the godfather of the Swain and Swain City Council attorneys. So glad to have you here tonight, sir.
Glad to be.
And welcome all of you
Glad to
this
be.
evening. Thank you for being here as well. We have 3 items on the consent agenda.
I make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second from Charlie Lawrence. Any comments from the audience on those 3 agenda items? Kathy, please call the roll.
Carlisle.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Detman.
Yes. Item 9, old business. I see nothing there. We go on to 10, new business, Lake Jackson Watershed Hydrology Study Update. Council input on the continuation of the project. Mr. Kyle Green and Dawn Ritter, please come forward. Thank you all for being here this evening.
Yes, sir. Good evening, council members. Kyle Green, Road and Bridge Director for the county. With me, I have Don Ritter. For some of you, this project probably started years ago. I know for me, the first discussions that I remember were probably 2013, and just reading through some of the minutes from the meetings. So what we're here today to discuss is whether or not the council would be willing to consider supporting the board in stopping the project. I know during our last discussion in front of the board, just several things have been challenging for the project from a administrative perspective. I know Clell Ford started the project years ago. I think there were things that, just from my experience in reading through some of the backup, that leaks and other things with the lake that, it's not my avenue, so I won't speak on it too much, but listening to Water Management District studies after we got involved in the project, we're not sure that all of the data regarding the lake levels supported leaks. We have a lake level data summary that we brought with us tonight. If you guys want to look at that, you're more than welcome to. But whenever we discussed it with the board, challenges with bids being too high, you've probably read through some of the backup, there's just been a challenge after a challenge. And so the board discussed with us the opportunity to close the project and reimburse the Water Management District. And we were able to find that the city had already reimbursed the county for the $4,300, and the remaining would be $9,800 approximately. So really what we're trying to establish today is whether or not the council would be willing to stop the project and reimburse that difference, or move forward and I guess try to work out a reasonable bid to move forward with the project. So we're here to answer any questions that you may have at this point.
Gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
Well, I'll ask a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
It's obvious the county doesn't think we should move forward with this
Yes, sir.
project. Did we find out anything for the money that's been put out so far?
And
Just planning or, yeah.
and design, and
Yeah.
I think we've bid the project 2 or 3 times. The bids that we received came back higher than the money that the funding partner gave us. And
Yes.
just changing staff on our side too is another issue. We take responsibility for the things that, since Don and I became involved, we've been working on a project for the last couple of years that, at least from my point of view, has been pretty important. So we haven't necessarily been able to hit it like we should, but when you send out bids and they come back higher than the money you have available twice at least, I think that's a pretty good indicator that you're just not going to have enough money to move forward with that level of detail of a study.
Was it a prevailing thought that this drought that really, I guess, caused to move forward, and this was before my time, so.
Yes, sir.
That would just be some, like a 100-year, storm kind of episode? Or is that kind of the prevailing opinion? Because the water's been up, it goes down, but not probably like it was that spurned this particular project.
Yes, sir. And before the last Board of County Commissioners meeting, we were able to obtain some water level index information from Water Management District, and it clearly shows when the lake's been up, and then around 2007, it really dropped down, and then we discussed the project around 2014, 2015, and a little bit after, it starts coming back up, and it's been up for the most part ever since. We participated in other meetings in the county. Lake Lotila was another meeting where water management staff came down, and the one consistent thought that I heard during those meetings was it's really a rain, factor. They provided information on Lake Lotila and other lakes in the county that have the sand bottoms, and that's just the consensus that I remember. So I would say yes, sir. It's just a upward downward
An
spiral.
event.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I think we were at that meeting in 2013 that came, and I think the best thing that came out of that meeting is when there was some gentleman that was in the audience, and they had Swift Mud and all the powers to be were here, and they had all these charts, and the guy said, well, move that chart there next to this chart, and they showed the rainfall and the lake level. And we had a lot of rain, the lake was up. When you had a lot of less rain, the lake was down. And he said that kind of says that it's a rain event, doesn't it? And I think that's the premise that we're looking at. And really, to me, it's the lake waters are our concern. But it even goes. And those of you that knew Jack Hancock, he was an attorney in town. He passed away several years ago, but he's pretty much born and raised here. And he said when he was a kid, they could drive cattle across Edgewater Point. So he said this lake comes and goes, because when we bought on the lake, our beach was probably 200 feet out. And said Jack, what's going on with the lake? He said, it's not getting any water. And he said, well, how does it get water? He says, well, it rains, it'll get water. And that's pretty much what it is. Now our beach is like 2 feet. So I think that's what it is. And I think you're probably right, Kyle. We're just, we just keep spending this money to get a study. And in my mind, I think this is a state issue. I mean, they're the water control experts here. Now they're coming back to us to say, we want you to help us pay for this thing, where it's like, it's our problem, but the state just kind of lays, it's another layoff onto the local communities and that stuff. And I don't really think, I don't think we need to spend any more money on this study, so.
Yes, sir.
I gave you a historical view on that.
Come on up, sir. Go ahead, come on up. We know you, but you have to state your name for the audience.
My name's Marvin Kahn. I happen to know that before they built US 27, the lake, you all are right about the rain. And the rain depends on a watershed. And the watershed determines where the water goes. And part of the watershed for the lake is that all that property west of Lake Jackson that's cut off by US 27. And when they cut off 27, it was just like a dike that inhibited a lot. And with the building of the houses and all, too, that altered the drainage some too. But I mean, all just living and growth all affects this kind of thing. It even could have gone out with me saying a word, but I just don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. Appreciate that. Discussion?
I just have one question. The 9802 here, is that the city's portion, or is that what we share?
Yes, sir. The total between the two was around 13 or 14,000, and the city had already paid the 4,300.
Okay, so
Yes, sir.
we have to come up with another 9802?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm also confused about the financial aspect. That the original agreement was that we were to pay 52,000.
Yes, sir.
How much of that have we paid?
4,307.
Oh, that's all we've paid?
Yes, sir. And just because we haven't moved forward
Right.
with the bids. Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But total costs up to this point are 28,218, right?
That's right.
So
Total cost.
Yes,
total
sir.
cost,
Right.
so half of that would be
14 and some change.
our responsibility, if you will, with a 50-50 share with the county.
Right.
That's
I
correct.
got it.
Okay, so has Swift Mud kicked in any at this point?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, they have.
And we've met with Swift Mud several times, and if we deducted the difference, that's what Swift Mud would pay. We'd have to move forward with tasks and things like that before they actually reimburse the county.
Mhm.
So at this point, there's none of the funding as far as a reimbursement perspective that Swift Mud has expended.
So
We
they
get that.
haven't spent any money?
Right, yes, sir.
Even though
Today.
they were originally on this gonna spend the biggest part of the money?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, have we asked them to?
So we don't really have, so the way the process works is if we would have entered into a bid and that consultant would have performed task one, we could have asked Water Management District for reimbursement. We haven't even gotten that far yet. We could definitely ask Water Management District, but I think their expectation is for the county to give them the 28,000, yes, sir.
Well, I would like to make a motion that we go ahead and cancel this, but ask Swift Mud to kick in their percentage as if they were going to go through the whole study.
We have a motion on the floor.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second discussion on the motion. Any input from the audience?
That's not a requirement, that's an ask, right?
That's
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
And,
Oh, if you don't ask, you're not gonna get it.
That's right.
So-
Right, I totally agree.
So, I guess my question is, they're gonna ask, and nothing happens, they're not gonna give us any money, then they have to come back and we gotta do this again?
Yeah.
No, we just go ahead with
We'll
it.
do the 98.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
it's not-
okay, well, I just wanna clear that up.
Okay, so if
We're still
Swift
on the
Mud
hook,
comes
though.
back and says
Yeah,
no,
oh, yeah.
you're agreeing to pay the 9,800. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody understands the motion then? Okay, Kathy, call the roll.
Carlisle.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Detman.
Yes. Item 10B.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle.
If y'all have any questions about the parkway, I don't know if that's coming up. We'll stay here for a few minutes.
You need to get it open as soon as you can. So-
Like tomorrow. Get that traffic off Lakeview Drive, Mike.
I'm late for work every day, I'll tell you.
And you only
Item
live
10B
3
is the
blocks
lease of
away.
the Women's Club property, Boys and Girls Club. Do I understand we have a PowerPoint presentation this evening? Sir, wherever you're most comfortable. Okay, we'll need a microphone then.
He can,
All right. Do you want to use that one?
yeah.
We're fine. Thank you so
Very
much.
good. Tim, tell us who you are, so.
and do some leadership development with some of their students. And I was not really aware of the impact that the club has had on these students. I simply mentioned in passing that I was the president of the Boys and Girls Club, and their ears perked up. So many of them at that point chimed in and said, I remember the Boys and Girls Club. You guys were great. We had a great time there. It was a great place for us to go. So it's fun and engaging, but the proof is in the pudding. You know, we're keeping these kids in a safe environment, and it's increasing their attrition rate here, their ability to graduate. With that, I will take any questions that you have.
Gentlemen, it's open for questions, comments.
Yeah. I guess I've got a couple of questions for you, Tim. As far as our length of contract, have you decided what kind of length of contract you might like to have?
Sure, we'd be open to whatever the city would be comfortable with. I would really like to, since we're going to be making a pretty sizable capital investment in this, to secure this for at least 5 years, if the city would be willing to go along with that. I know that we've been in partnership with the city for quite some time. You have seen the ebbs and flows of our organization, but I'm confident now with the leadership that we have in place that this is going to be nothing but an upward trajectory moving forward. So I would like to see at least 5 years, if you would be willing to grant us that.
Yeah, that sounds real reasonable to me. Also, I would like to ask you that, you know, you guys are going to be using it Monday through Friday,
Yes,
is
sir.
what I understand, so that it might be available to rent on, say, Saturday or Sunday.
Yes, absolutely. We would facilitate any necessary bookings for that, make sure that there was somebody that was there to open and close the facility as well.
So that would be no burden on the city to have someone show up there?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Or to coordinate that, or to make sure that that organization had insurance or whatever?
Yes, sir. That's something that we gladly do with the city of Avon Park with great success at this point.
Okay, I think that's great, and that does save the city a lot of money, and some of our city employees a lot of time.
Yes.
They don't have to worry about that. I know at the Civic Center, it does take some extra time for
Sure.
our city employees. I have one other concern, and I'm gonna say that at the Blue Building, by putting teenagers there, and I know we were all a teenager at one point or another, but is there any arrangements or thoughts on the security there? If you have,
Yes.
you know, 12 to 17-year-old kids there in the evenings, going into the night, and especially this time of year, it's dark at 6 o'clock.
Yes, it is.
So
And-
what
and
type of
that's-
security arrangements?
I appreciate, that's a great question, and that's a key component of our program is we have an arrangement, not necessarily to have a full-time security guard, so to speak, but to have a very constant and strong presence with the Highlands County Sheriff's Office. We've been working very closely with, which deputy have we been working with? Lieutenant Tyson, and also Mike Brown has expressed his full support from the organization, or from the Sheriff's Office as well. We would hope to extend that to the City of Sebring Police Department to the extent that they were willing to or participate in such an event or a partnership.
And are you gonna have the Blue Building open on the weekends also for the teenagers?
That's something we haven't discussed yet. If we are able to secure the funding, the more it's open, the more we're accomplishing our goals. So I would say my answer to that would be yes, pending funding, if we're able to secure it, which we believe we're going to be able to do so.
Okay. I just wanna also say that I think it's a great job that you guys are doing this.
Thank you.
You know, just the graduation, the high school graduation rate is astronomical. That literally 30% more for those kids that participate in your
Yes.
program. I think that's excellent.
Thank you so much. We're
And
proud of it, very
as-
proud.
As most of you know, I wasn't really for buying the women's club from the women's group,
Yeah.
but we've done that already.
Mhm.
We now have it. I think this is a great possibility to do this that won't cost the city any additional money on a continual basis, so.
Thank you so
I
much.
thank you very much
Yes, sir.
for bringing this in front of us.
My pleasure.
Tim, can you kind of, you know, I think there may be some continued costs on that, as far as the maintenance.
Sure,
Yeah,
absolutely. What we
Where
would-
we're gonna participate, where you're gonna participate.
Sure. What we would ask is that the city basically mirror exactly what the arrangement that we have with the Blue Building, in which there's no we do general maintenance, we do upkeep, but we would. I believe the city currently, and Scott help me with this, tends to.
Utilities and, it's the lawn care.
Mowing and half utilities. So that's the ongoing agreement that we've been working with for a number of years.
We maintain the building, we have we'll call it a general contractor, he works with the city, he works with us and gives us a very reasonable rate. When we have issues.
Well, again, I thank you all so much for your.
I have some
Yes, sir.
questions.
Please. Okay.
Well, first of all, I think you do a great job, but I think this is a terrible location. We have a busy highway or road out front, and we have a lake across the road, and anybody knows that kids are attracted to water.
Sure.
So who's going to keep those kids from crossing that road and going to that lake?
That's a great question. We have intentions to have a gate, a fence around it, so prevent people from just wandering across the street.
Okay, and how are we going to save taxpayers' money if we're going to do exactly what we do at the Blue Building? If the air conditioner goes out, we fix it. Taxpayers' money. If it needs a roof, we fix it. Taxpayers' money. So we're really not saving the taxpayers much of anything.
I would
And
argue that the benefit that we provide to the city far outweighs any cost to the city. Yes, you do, offer those because they're your buildings. If we were to take retention of them, then absolutely those should be our cost, but they remain your property. Additionally, whatever you guys do with this, whether you decide to fix it up and bring it up to code, what's necessary, that's going to cost the taxpayer dollars. Or if you decide to bulldoze the thing, that's going to cost the taxpayer dollars as well. I would say that if we look at what's going to provide our community greater ongoing benefit, helping those who need us most is going to do far more than the occasional lack of overflow parking that we would otherwise be solving.
Also, there's already a teen center going on for Youth of Christ
Sure.
under Bountiful Blessings.
Yep.
And they're planning on having a 5-day program
Mhm.
starting this year. So why would we want 2 teen centers there?
Sure, I would say if we could have 5 centers, we need 5 centers. We're just simply, the amount of teens that need this service far exceeds our ability to adequately provide for them. So, we are not in competition with the Youth for Christ organization. We would work hand in hand with them and attempt to complement them. I think they would say the same of us, that they would welcome additional hands trying to accomplish their mission.
And
Let
generally,
me add to that, Councilman, the
Go
Youth
ahead.
for Christ.
Go ahead and introduce
Oh,
yourself
I'm
first, please.
Dave Cornett. I
And your position.
run the
with
Boys and Girls Club here in Highlands County. I'm executive director of the Boys and Girls Club.
Okay.
They close that program at 5:30 every day. Our hope is to take those kids, and I've already spoken with their director, and move them directly down to our building starting at 6 o'clock. So we're trying to work with them to keep those kids off the street. They have a very good program, but it closes. Once they have dinner, they break them and they send them home. Or send them out. I shouldn't say send them home. Most of them are just going wherever. So we have spoken and we have tried to coordinate this, and our hope is that we can pull those kids right down to our building.
that's not what I understand, but that's okay, because I made some phone calls yesterday, and that's not what I understand, but that's okay. And also, from what I can tell, usually the Boys and Girls Club is located close to where the targeted children are. Well, there's very few children around the Women's Club, and you mentioned that the city, the Women's Club there's a thing in here, the Women's Club, said something about partnering with the Boys and Girls Club and using that building. If I'm not mistaken, that's not in our contract. We did not buy that
course.
building with that in the contract.
You bought the building with interest in serving the community, and this is
Absolutely.
a way that we can partner with all of those. I'm not saying that the Women's Club has any skin in the game. We're just, those are some of your constituents that we can continue serving in a manner. And I would welcome the opportunity to meet with anyone who says that we would be anything other than a complimentary organization to the Youth for Christ. Whether they go this direction or that direction, as long as they go somewhere other than the corner of Highlands and Lemon, they're going to be in a better place.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Tim and Dave, we've had some conversations, and I'm not for you moving to this location, so I know that's not a surprise to you. I don't think we should make that decision tonight. One, the city hasn't even met to see what we want to do with this as a group. Any ideas that we might have? Yeah, it probably will cost us money if we want to upgrade it. It's going to cost us money anyway, no doubt about it. That's one thing. Secondly, the community doesn't even know we're talking about this. The residents on Lakeview don't even know. They haven't been notified. We don't know what their feeling is there. And I don't think we should act before we do our due diligence in that regard. I voted for buying it because I think it's strategic with our water system, that right there, that part of the water system. I think we need to control it. I don't think we need to wait for end of a 5-year contract if we had to do something in 3 years. I can't believe that this is the only place that this can happen. And it's a good work. It's nothing against, what you do or your mission or any of that. I just don't agree with the location. Again, as Mr. Carlisle said, you really have to keep a sharp eye out on these kids. 1 to 5, I mean, I know you plan on doing that.
Yes.
But let something happen one time, let the kid cross that road and get hit, or let them get drowned in that lake over there, and because somebody missed,
Sure, and that's a risk that we run every day with our students, even at the existing sites. They're not on back roads as it stands.
Mhm.
So I understand and I would counter your objection, indicating that there are no students there. Our students are all over the place. We would welcome any student that would be willing to do so. As you saw, we're currently serving on a daily basis approximately 68 children. We have a registration of somewhere double that number in our county. But that pales in comparison to the potential, north of 2,000 students that we have the potential of serving.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any idea where the students are they coming from, the local neighborhood or the local school in that area? I mean, they're busing over.
As it stands, sir, we are busing them over from Woodlawn and Fred Wild, and we're bursting at the seams, so we would love to, have multiple sites and be able to take on Cracker Trail and Sun and Lake and wherever else would welcome us. We just don't have the capacity to do so at this time.
Well, I just won't take much more time. At this time, I don't think we should vote for that until the neighborhood knows. We contact people, we talk and make sure that this is the way we want to go, that we don't want to do something with it. We haven't talked about any of that I'm aware of.
And in reality, sir, I did submit a proposal to this board about 5 months ago, so there's not been any secret about this.
I know that, but we haven't talked about it. Whether you put the proposal in a year ago, we haven't talked about it.
I understand.
Yeah, that's what I was trying
Absolutely, I understand what you're
convey.
saying. You have constituency served, and so
And the neighbors in that area need to know what's going on, and they don't.
Any Any other comments from the podium?
I have one, I guess maybe suggestion in a way,
Yes, sir.
but if you're going to coordinate the renting of this property on weekends, let's say Saturday and or Sunday, and I can see a church maybe wanting to rent it on Sunday, do you think that you could take any of those profits and offset some of those costs that we might ordinarily incur, such
Yes,
as replacing
sir.
the
That would be
roof?
our pleasure.
or-
Well, I needed to speak to that because Councilman Carlisle, you had said that you would incur the cost of the air conditioning. That's written in our contract. We have to carry that cost in the blue building. That was one of the biggest things that I read, and I wasn't happy to see, as you could guess. But some of those costs, actually, the cost of the blue building, we pretty much take care of all of them. We have not come to you that I can think of about anything. And I understand we don't want to. We really don't. And we would love to use that as a platform to sit on. Any money that we would make through a rental of the facility, we put right back into the building. That's our plan.
But every year, you come to us for funds, and last year we gave you 50,000. This year we're giving you 40,000. So basically, it still comes out of our taxpayers' pocket.
Agreed.
So, you know, we have to protect the taxpayers as well. And again, I want to say, I think you do a great job, but I think there's a better location. I really do.
I don't know either. The estimate to bring that up to code, I don't know if you had anyone give you an estimate of what it would be. Maybe you have, I don't know. But it sure doesn't match what we had heard.
Well, we went out there and looked at it, and I think our guesstimate, really, not really an estimate, but guesstimate was more than twice that number. And I really feel like that's real. The other area that I'm concerned about is when these repairs are being done, and specifically the handicap bathroom, that's a historic building. So it has to maintain the historic look. You just can't build a bathroom. You've got to have it look like the rest of the building. You have to use struck block if you're going to be laying block. So it has to have that same mid-century modern kind of feel to it, which that's going to elevate the price as well.
Okay.
There's no doubt about that. The other thing that I was thinking about was I appreciate that you guys want to rent it out for us. That's great, but there'll be no rentals during the week. You can't get in there at 6 o'clock at night and have a party, and if you're not, because when they rent all our other spaces, they're in there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So really, it's just the weekend.
If I may talk to that,
Yeah.
I really do believe that the concept of rental is great, but it really is a drop in the bucket in the cost to maintain it is far more than any cost.
I'm not disputing that.
Okay.
I would agree with you. We don't make money on our
Right,
rentals.
right.
There's no doubt. But we certainly aren't going to if we can't rent it at all during the week.
Correct.
So yeah, I'm a little apprehensive about that as well.
Sure, and again, the facility would be opened in the morning as well to some of those organizations that meet bright and early, and in the evenings.
So I don't understand. I thought you're on there like at 8 a.m.
Sure. We would have administration in a separate
Mhm.
in a separate part.
Sure,
There's
yeah.
a closed an outside entrance to.
Okay.
But our students don't show up until 2 o'clock, and our staff get there at 1 o'clock.
Right.
So
are you going to break down the building every day and reset it up?
We pretty much do that now with the
So
blue building.
you'd have to rent it.
Yeah, we pretty much do that with the blue building.
Okay. Yeah.
I have one other question, I guess,
Yes,
of
sir.
administration and council. And Mr. Ivy had brought up the fact of, us talking about this, and this is the only time we can talk about it as a group unless we have a special workshop or something like that.
Special work.
Do we have any other offers out there? Do we have any other purposes for the building? And I'm going to
Well,
leave that to other
you ought
council
to
members as well
address
as
that.
administration.
To me, is fine. I don't know what we could use where if I'm sitting right here, but we haven't even talked about it. Like you say, it really probably requires a special meeting where we're allowed to talk to each other and kick things around and really talk about this. Otherwise, I can't talk to him other than having a special meeting. I can't talk to you. I can't talk to anybody about it other than the mayor. Maybe I could talk to you, but to Scott. But I don't think we've pursued any of that, and I just say, it can't be the only place in town. And maybe it is, but I find that hard to believe. But I think we just need to talk about it more. We need to let the community know what's going on, and those are the two, basic things. The others are all speculation. Whether you're gonna make the money, you're gonna need money from the city, taxpayer money. We know there's gonna be taxpayer money in our mind, but that's speculation. I can't lay it out to you, with fact, but, I don't think it'll take a Rhodes Scholar to figure that out. So, that's just my comment on us not talking about it as a group.
But Scott, have we had any other?
I mean,
Group,
originally, the concept behind acquiring that property was, a future use. The future use, initially was, we might need additional parking, because Veterans Beach during, heavy holidays, does utilize all the parking there. So, that was the initial impetus, but we also needed, the potential for water plant expansion. There is that potential out there. These are all things that we, discussed as options. Another option is it could be another rental facility for the city. You all know as well as I do that we don't make money on rental facilities. So it would be a service that we would be providing as a city more than anything else. We would be, funding it with probably taxpayer dollars in order to I'm going to say break even, because our current civic center is, I'm going to call it about a break even by the time you account for all the expenses that you have at the civic center. That's essentially, our initial conversation is we wanted to acquire the property for future parking, perhaps, future issues that we might have at the water plant out there where we might need that facility. Because it became available and the city once owned it, council decided that we should own it again.
If I may, Mr. Stewart, as far
Yes.
as your concerns about the cost,
Right.
We have skin in the game, tremendous skin, and we're committed to whatever kind of capital program that we have to put together in order to offset the cost of this. So, whether it's $40 or $60,000, we're going to make that happen.
Okay.
Well, I'm not sure that we have a consensus here. I'm kind of hearing both.
I
things.
go
And,
along with Mr. Ivy. We need the people in the neighborhood need to be contacted by letter or whatever and set up another meeting so they can tell us how they feel about it, because we're up here representing them. And I don't care what anybody says, it's gonna cost tax dollars. They come to us every year and want 40, 50,000 for one facility, or they gonna come next year and want 100,000 because they got two places now. So we just gotta, that's a lot of questions that can't be answered here tonight. And I agree with Mr. Ivy, maybe we do need to have a special meeting and kick around some thoughts. We didn't buy, we bought it for the property, is what we bought it for. And Mr. Lawrence, you was totally against that, and
No.
and we needed it. We need that property.
Well, again, and yes, I was against purchasing it because we lose money by the properties we have. It's as simple as that. It costs the taxpayers money for every property we have out there.
But if we do this, and they come to us for another $40,000 or $50,000, we just throw them we just throw away some more. tanks.
We're gonna spend money on it now that we own it.
No doubt.
Or we can
One
sell
way or
it.
another.
One way or another. I would like to ask Mr. Detman if you'd ask if there's anybody in the audience who would.
Well, before, let me go ahead and make my comments and a couple of questions that I have here, and I don't mean to make you sweat, Tim, trust me.
I could do this all day long.
You're used to- That's right, you're around 68 kids all day, aren't you?
No, sir, I'm not around 68 kids. That's the administration that does that. I'm on the board.
Well, with that number of 68 kids,
Uh-huh.
is what you're currently serving at the Blue Building.
Sir.
I'm talking the first through fifth graders.
Sir.
Your target is 100 children. How do you plan on going from 68 to 100? You're talking another 33% more children.
We have.
All of a sudden,
We have, our limiting factor is not demand. If we said we had, space for 300 children, we'd have 300 children there. We don't have the ability to service them because of, our grants that, fund us, require a certain amount of space, per student, which is far beyond that of, what the fire chief says that we can handle 200 and something children.
I see.
So, demand is not at all a concern.
So what you're saying, if I can boil the fat right out of this, that the yellow building, which is the women's club building,
Sure.
would help you boost those numbers toward your goal of 100 or more.
Sure.
And the blue building would serve your teens
Yes, sir.
and could increase their numbers as well, because now you're working out of two larger facilities and splitting it down the middle, so.
Mr. Devon, to even make that better, one of the things that we're focusing on, and especially this year, is to build the teen number. We
Right.
cannot build that teen number without space.
Right.
The focus on the teens comes from that area specifically. And by moving the younger children to another location, they're not a problem in any way, shape, or form. As a matter of fact, they're very observant of rules, they do what they're told, and they're controlled very well. I mean, they're young children. The teens are the ones that we want to make sure we focus on. So we're going to double those numbers, if not triple.
So right now, the first to fifth graders go home at around 6 o'clock?
Between 5 and 6.
Yes. Okay.
As the parents.
And then the
have-
teen, your target group for the teens would come in around 6.
Right.
And be there until 8 o'clock.
Or later, depending
Or
upon
not.
how we can move them, yes.
Okay. So splitting it up would give you that much more flexibility. I
Yes, sir.
get that. And we're not like cutting your legs out from under you if we don't move on this right away,
Yes, sir.
simply because you still have your first through fifth graders there till 5:30 or so.
Yes, sir.
The teenagers, you're going to pursue that
Yes, sir.
at the blue building until then. And, and this is really difficult for me. As you guys know, I served on the board of directors for 10 years.
Yes, sir.
And I really have this at my heart. But I also have to look at both sides of that as well. And I do share Mr. Ivy's concerns about us moving, not so much the location. The location doesn't really bother me, to be honest with you.
Moving forward without.
Yes, without really exploring what the city wants to do or should do, or what would best serve the majority of our citizens. You guys contribute a tremendous amount to what's good about Sebring and Highlands County.
Thank you, sir.
And I really compliment you for that, and I know you know that I really feel that way. But if there's gonna be a consensus and it starts leaning, the lean's gonna be toward, I think the city needs to do a little bit more of their own diligence before we make a decision on that, whether it be a special council meeting or a workshop or whatever way it may occur.
Sure.
And then maybe really put everything out on the table so that we have a complete comfort
Sure.
as to what our final decision might be. I know you're only asking for a 5-year, and in 5 years, we could probably come back and do the same thing. But let's do this right the first time, because if you guys end up to be the ones that we feel it would be the best use for this and serve the community the best, well, guess what? I'd be willing to give you a 10-year lease on it. I mean,
Sure.
so that's where I'm at.
Sure. Well, I
So,
understand that, and
guys,
I appreciate that.
however you
Absolutely.
wanna move
If I
ahead
may
with
just,
this, or-
and again, I apologize, I assumed that we were holding you guys up, so we kind of were pushing, to get on the agenda because, we were, we felt like, we were leaving you guys at a standstill. So, my misinterpretation, I apologize for that. I absolutely agree that you need, the consensus of your constituents, not only those on Lakeview Drive, but also the students that we'll be serving.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, they're constituents as well, and I get it, and I appreciate what you're doing. And, our timeline, we would like to open the facility, by the start of school in August. So that gives us, a reasonable amount, but remember, construction projects
Sure.
drag on, and, so that's where we are, sir.
I think we can all walk out of here this evening, still friends, still complimentary and understanding what our goals and our mission may be. We just need a little bit more time to look at it, and I appreciate all of the comments from the dais up here. So, if I'm reading this right, I think we're gonna
Table this?
put it on timeout, table it if you will. Everybody, got a head nod going this way, or yes or no?
I'm pretty comfortable with that, but I would like to say I would like to move forward so that building doesn't just stay vacant and
Sure.
unused for very long.
I think we're all in agreement with that as well, aren't we? Okay, so we're not, unless we have a motion on the floor, I think we're gonna move on in the agenda, and thank you all for being here and your presentation.
Maybe
and-
instruct staff to schedule a workshop.
Oh, yeah.
You wanna
Scott or
Get
Kathy?
dates together with y'all guys again, to schedule a workshop at a later date, when y'all can look at your
Yeah, I
calendars.
think that would be a good idea.
Okay. I'll poll y'all and see when,
You guys like the idea of a workshop so we can sit and talk about it and really chew on it?
how
Mr.
soon do you wanna have the
President, can I
workshop?
Ask you one
Hold
more
on
time.
one second, Charlie has a question.
Yeah, if there's anybody from the audience that wants to speak on this.
Sorry, you're right, I neglected to do that. Please, any comments and any thoughts from the audience? Come on up, sir. Tell us who you are and share your thoughts with us. We appreciate it very much.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm Scott Carkeet. I live at 3550 Lakeview Drive here. And just as way of background, I've spent the past 40 years of my life traveling to the four corners of the world in international logistics and working with customs. And I was blessed to have found Sebring. And I built my dream house here on Lakeview Drive. I did it twice, once on Dawn and Lakeview, and now at where I live now. And I've canvassed my neighbors. They're back from Canada or up north, and they all thought it was great. You know, everybody wants to help the kids. So I'm just saying that the few neighbors that are back I've talked to, they're very excited to see that building put to that sort of use. We're also a member of the flying club out here at the airport, so there's a lot of pilots that are excited to help the Boys and Girls Club. And so that would be a perfect place for us, because some people come from like Lake Placid areas, and we even have some people come from Winter Haven, and all willing to volunteer. So we hope that you look favorable on this decision.
Excellent. Thank you very,
Thank
very
you.
much. And if you would please make your information known to either Mr. Nately
Sure.
or Ms. Haley before the end, and we're very close to the end of the agenda,
Okay.
so we won't keep you too much longer.
Okay.
Then you can share your contact information.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Anything else? Anybody else? Yes, sir. Please come forward.
My name's Rick Ravine. I live.
Don't come up to the microphone because we need to get you on tape.
My name's Rick Ravine. I live over on Lake Sebring. I'm a member of board of directors of the Boys and Girls Club. I've heard everything you all said tonight. I would like to see you guys come up and say, okay, we're gonna have the workshop. When are we gonna have it? So that's all I have to say.
Well, I think that's exactly what we said. All we're doing now is letting Ms. Haley go ahead and coordinate with all of us for a date.
And could we anticipate that within the next month?
Oh, I would think so. What do you guys think? You know, we're right up on the holidays, so you know, that might be a little bit tricky, but let's see how that works out.
Well,
We'll do our
okay,
best.
January, February?
Oh, yeah.
We'll do our best, so absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'd like to
Okay.
see it before the first of the year myself, but.
And then just an idle curiosity thing, this workshop, is this a private thing, or would this be open for people
It's
to come
open.
and do things?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And how does that get published?
It'll be published.
it's in the paper.
It'll
It'd
be in the newspaper.
It would also be on our web calendar if you have access to internet, and hit City of Sebring and go to the calendar.
Well,
Once
could you
we
let us know when you schedule it?
Sure.
The Boys and Girls
If you can
Club?
provide us
Well, you have the
You let
contact
Dave know.
information, too.
Well, he'll definitely know.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank
We'll
you.
be in contact. Okay. Do we have any business from the audience? Ms.
No,
Haley,
sir.
thank you. City Attorney's business, Mr. J. Michael Swain.
Okay, item 12A is the signing of the forbearance agreement. This is on the Country Club of Sebring water and wastewater system. The contract with Greg Harris is that when the city gets through interconnecting the wastewater system to the city system, that he will clean up and decommission the wastewater system on his nickel. So it's nothing that you're going to do. He has now entered into an agreement where the property would be deeded to Prairiewood, JRJ LLC, and they would be responsible for decommissioning, and that's what this agreement provides for, that they're taking over that responsibility.
Any questions or comments, gentlemen?
I'll make a motion that we approve the forbearance agreement as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any comments from the audience on this topic? Kathy, call the roll.
Carlisle.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Detman.
Yes. The city administrator's business of Stepping Stones Girl Scout, Mr. Napick, please.
Evening, Council. There are several attachments to some correspondence that we received from Betsy Laughlin. She represents the Girl Scout Council, and they terminated or vacated their lease effective October 31st of 2019. And staff is seeking guidance from council as how they wish us to proceed with the Girl Scout house. The rationale for them terminating that lease, I think it was ongoing maintenance costs, and there was about $38,000 or so of costs that were anticipated to be necessary to complete some repairs that Carl Kuhl suggested in reference to the Girl Scout house. They did have a 99-year lease with the city, and terminate that effective October. So
they have 45 years left on their lease. Why don't they talk to the Boys and Girls Club? It's kind of a small building. Yes, it is. It's in close proximity to where you'd like to be, and you might be able to build onto it, but
that's pretty historic as well.
It really is historic.
As you all may know, the county has been maintaining that building for the past several years. And they did that in a trade of some parking, because we own that entire lot or parcel. So the county was doing the maintenance on that building. And they've also inquired as well as to, we'll say what the city's intentions are. We did have some conversation with them. I believe they are interested in the property. So staff is just looking for council's guidance on what you all would like us to do.
So
Do we
they
have
want to
any
bulldoze
idea?
it and make a parking lot out of it? That's the big question, isn't it?
That's the big question.
And they haven't said that for sure, have they?
No.
We have an appraisal on that piece of property to know what's even worth.
Is the county looking to purchase it from us, or do they want us to
More information.
give it to them?
Well, we could throw that in with the other workshop.
I mean, I think the county would be interested in purchasing, but it has not been to their board yet. So we've just spoken to staff. They did have some discussion at a recent meeting, so I think there's interest there. I just don't know what level of interest. they have. Obviously, given its location, they're gonna have interest because it's right in the middle of several of their properties.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
I was under the impression that perhaps somebody locally from the Girl Scouts here was going to be at the meeting tonight. I don't know that there's anybody here to speak to it.
Any representatives from the Girl Scouts here?
There's one right there.
Would you like to address us this evening on this topic? Please come forward and identify yourself for us.
Hello, Jolene Cochran, live in Sebring. Former Girl Scout leader. My daughter's been out of high school about 7 years. And we did have just an informal meeting with some of the current leaders and some of the past ones, and just more or less concerned about either preserving the building, possibly moving the building. You know, if there's any way that, you know, if there was another piece of property that we could, to me, that would be a good option. I mean, anything's gonna, it'll take a lot of money. So like it probably boils down to, is it worth moving it or saving it? But, and I believe, I forgot her name, Miss Mitchell, who was one of the, Sophie Mae Mitchell, yes. Was it her or her mother that actually got the building built? Her mother?
Her mother, yeah.
So, and she's still.
Redstone.
Yeah. Did entertainment there.
We actually have a history here, a
Yep.
brief history of the Stepping Stones Girl Scout house here, and the name Fred Stone, a New York actor, came to town and performed dance and musical numbers. Does that sound familiar to you? There you go. Have you read this yet?
I have
Are
not.
you familiar with that?
No.
Okay, we can share that with you as well.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, depending on what the city and the county are wanting to do, if we need to form, you know, a community organization to save the building, or, you know, fundraise and that kind of thing, that's kind of what we were thinking, you know, might need to happen, depending on.
Which organization do you think might have or would accept a financial responsibility if they were to, let's say we sold it to the county?
Mm-hmm.
And the understanding in the sales agreement, if there is such a thing, would be to preserve or move the building.
Mm-hmm.
Which organization would that be that might want to partner with the county? Because I don't think the city has an appetite for that right now.
Yeah.
Am I right?
I would guess the Historical Society might be.
Right, maybe the
but
Historical
They do
Society.
have a big project on their
Maybe
plate right now,
the
too.
county.
And they have
maybe
nothing.
someone
Yeah.
other than the city.
Yeah. I think the Historical Society would be a good avenue, but,
Well,
I
they're
mean, they
already
got a lot on
fundraising
their
for the
plate,
village,
but.
And they're already fundraising for the,
Yeah.
They could put it on the back of that property over there.
Vicky, you
Do
could
you have
put
a-
it
you got a spot
behind
in
the
the back-
Santa Rosa.
Back lot?
I will say what,
I think I'm gonna turn this.
Thanks for
meeting
coming
over.
tonight, Vicky.
my name is Vicki Jarvis. I am the secretary of the Sebring Historical Society Board of Directors. The Stepping Stones House is a historical building. The Historical Society has not really had a chance to talk about it, but one of the things that the Sebring Historical Society has talked about is that we're losing too many historic buildings in downtown Sebring. We would love to see that building stay right where it is and that building be preserved, whether it's by the city or the county or whoever. But we're letting too many buildings go away. Part of the our mission is to save and protect and preserve Sebring and Highlands County, is what the Sebring Historical Society mission is. That is one reason why, other than the fact that we're out of space, but that is one reason why we're looking at a historic building to save and preserve. Yes, it's a big chunk if we get to do the Santa Rosa. We're hoping that if we do get to do the Santa Rosa, that will help inspire others. As far as speaking of moving that property, that might be a challenge to do, and you'd have to do a lot of research before you could say yes or no you can move that building, because some historic buildings cannot be moved. Now, that building I do not think is on the National Historic Registry, so you've got a little bit more leniency, but as example, the Santa Rosa is on the National Historic Registry. That building is, you can't move that building. So that's something that you got to look at. So, but anything that can be done to preserve that building is what needs to be done. And I do know that the Girl Scouts have cleaned out, the Girl Scout Council over in Sarasota cleaned everything out of that building and took it over to Sarasota. There is nothing left in Sebring except for the time capsule.
Right.
And the time capsule is being donated to the Sebring Historical Society. But the Sebring Historical Society is also putting together a plan, and we're making phone calls to the council over in Sarasota to get a lot of those archives back, including the portrait of Miss Mitchell that was hanging in the Girl Scout house, because that is Sebring history.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as that stuff is over in Sarasota, we just lost more history of Sebring. So, you know, I don't know what this historical society could do to help, but, you know, right now we're trying to fundraise because we've got to have another building. And no, that building's not big enough for us to move into. Sorry.
Is the reason, this is in the form of a question, maybe Mr. Nadler can answer it. Is the reason that the Girl Scouts have moved out of the building because they can no longer afford it? They don't have the membership, or what?
I got the impression it was a combination of membership and can no
Funding.
longer afford to
Because of
maintain
the-
it, you know, the way it should be maintained, I think. So.
Yes, ma'am.
And I believe the Girl Scout Council took the position that they're not in the business of maintaining buildings. They try to find churches or schools where the local clubs can meet versus actually maintaining facilities. So that was
I almost
kinda-
want to say this is kind of unique, and I
I think
don't
it-
really know, but I mean,
And I think
it's
it
just
was
a
'cause,
unique situation because
there had been a reorganization within the Girl Scout National, and we had been part of the council that was over by Lakeland, and then we got moved to, they kind of condensed and redid the areas and ended up with Sarasota. And so they kind of, you know,
Yeah.
acquired that through that merger.
The Girl Scouts moved in there in 1939, and they just moved out this past May.
Yeah.
Didn't quite make that 99 years though, did they?
No.
Well, I have a thought in regards to it, and maybe we could put some feelers out there to see if there is anybody that would like to donate some land to move that building, and then maybe sell the land that building sits on now to the county and take that money and use that towards or to pay for the move of that. I know a lot of places that I've been to, other communities, they'll have, let's say, the first one-room schoolhouse or something, but it's very seldom ever on the original land. So somebody comes along, that land is great, and they want to give big bucks for it, so they move that schoolhouse, still somewhere within, let's just say, the city, but something that's not quite as valuable as that land. Maybe the county will give us, and I'm just going to throw out a number, say 50 grand for that parcel of land, and maybe we can move that building for 50 grand. And maybe somebody's sitting on a lot, and maybe even the city has a lot or two that they've gotten back in one way or another, that the house could be moved to. So that's just what I'm going to
Mr.
throw
Khan,
out.
I'd like to respond to
Yes,
your
he would.
comments there.
Okay.
I think he has a whole grove that he'd like to donate to us. Don't move too fast on that one, though.
Thank you very much for calling on me. I just want to let you folks know that I'm a Boy Scout. And as a Boy Scout, born and raised here in Sebring, I'm very interested in that building staying just where it's at, as a Girl Scout house. And I would think, I'm not prepared to show any real leadership other than what I'm speaking here tonight, but I would think that the city, the county could join my thoughts in realizing how important scouting is. You had an hour-and-a-half presentation here by the Boys and Girls Club. You know, there wouldn't be any Boys and Girls Club if we had more Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and families that took care of their people. So this is a method to maintain what we've always came up with as a way of life in Sebring. And parking's important. And I haven't made any study of parking, but I'll just bet you any buck you want to bet that there's some better place to park close to that courthouse other than that spot. You don't need that spot for parking. There's parking on the other side of the street, on the back of the car, or this place, that place. People walk another 3 steps rather than do whatever it takes. I just think that, if we had a real leadership, if you really want to pick up on what I'm saying, join the county, put in a nickel from the city, a quarter from the county, get the community to donate some money to the thing. There's plenty of people here that if they had some leadership to understand what we're going to do, and too many people, well, anyway, that's enough for me saying. God bless you. I hope you make the right
Mr. Kahn, and I
decision.
think we all agree with you. I believe we all agree with you.
I was sure you would.
But what I'm afraid is that train has already left the station because the Girl Scout Council has mulled this around for a very, very long time. And I'm sure they have brainstormed the daylights out of this and have come up, let's call it empty-handed, or maybe insufficient funds to make the needed repairs.
Well, look, I don't mean to belittle the Girl Scout. And I'm just letting the Girl Scout Council, maybe they didn't know all the help they could get. Maybe they didn't know that I'd get up and make this speech.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Kahn.
I think the issue with the
See
local.
y'all. I gotta go get my supper.
I think the real issue with the local Girl Scouts, because I had several calls from them, is they were told like the day after the letter or email was sent that they were not gonna, or that the council was not, or was bailing out of the lease. So the local people didn't even know that was happening, right, Jolene?
Yeah, it was like
It was-
a week. maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty quick that all of a sudden they said, we're not in this business and we're gonna take away the lease. So I've had several calls where they're trying to figure out, and they don't have a local organization. They're part of a bigger council. So it's not a local 501c3 or something like that. They're part of the Sarasota, I think now, or whatever it was, or Tampa, I'm not even sure.
Yeah, it's just,
But, so they were kind of blindsided by this event that happened also, and didn't know they were going down this road. So this thing kind of just came, when this email came, it was pretty close to when they were told that, we're gonna clear this thing out, and they did. I think Tampa came, or whoever came over
I was told
and
a
cleaned
couple
that place out.
Saturdays ago that they came in and cleaned it out, and that
Girl Scouts didn't even know
the
it.
Girl Scouts didn't know it, and that one of the former lead, I think she was a former leader, she said that she had met them there and she got the time capsule and everything else was already gone, and that the scouts were very, 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 very upset that there's no local history left here. And the couple of the scout leaders that has talked to the Historical Society in the last week, they're the ones that mentioned if we could at least get Miss Mitchell's picture back, that would be satisfactory, but they would like more of the history back in Sebring.
If the couple that I've talked to are trying to organize themselves to say, hey, if we can get some kind of a fundraising effort going to see how far they could get. Because they said they'd like to preserve the history, but they don't have the organization that can do it. That's their only problem. So maybe, and this may be, like, you kind of joked a little bit about putting it on a workshop, but
Sure, yeah.
you know, this is another one that we can,
Might very well.
because it kind of hit us here in the last
Yeah.
3 weeks anyway also.
And we
And-
did
and it's a,
invite-
and like Vicky said, it's kind of a, you know, you look at the historic buildings that come and go, and over the years, there's a lot of historic buildings that have gone. The park, you know, the Tuscarora Park, all that, city did something with that, but they have, you know, the hotels, so, you know, things come and go, but it's still, if there's an opportunity for us to preserve some of the history, I think that's what makes Sebring unique. And we have a gentleman back here that found us, you know, and was thankful for finding us, and I think part of it's just
And
the
the city
quaintness.
tore down his house.
Yeah, the city tore,
City tore down his house to build the library.
whose house?
Mr. Seaver. She's talking.
Oh,
about Mr.
I was
Seaver.
talking to somebody else.
Oh.
Yeah. The gentleman in the back there, so,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, no, when the heck did he just built that house.
You brought it up.
But you know, I mean, that's, and that's it, and it's, you know, it's more historic, I think, than a women's club is historic.
Yeah, it is.
But it's still, you know, what, you know, how far do you go, what can you do, and you know, it's a lot of big, you look on the circle, look at the buildings we have in a circle, what's the plan for those buildings? You know, a lot of them that, you take a look at, there's some in sad shape, and how do we, you know, it's something, you know, I've been talking a little bit with CRA about, you know, how do you get those buildings back in shape? You know, you could lose half the buildings on a circle in no time.
Yes, you could.
So,
Well, what's
y'all
your,
gotta make a decision, so
what's
I'll
your-
just sit
what's
here and
your
talk
pleasure,
about it.
Gentlemen,
so.
do you wanna workshop this one as well, and,
Yeah, I think that'd be an
I
appropriate.
mean, maybe
Yes.
we can invite Miss, I guess Betsy Laughlin, the CFO, the Girl Scouts of Gulf Coast Florida Incorporated.
I think they've written us off, to tell you the truth.
There's
Yeah,
no
so
point in having her here, really.
I think you'd let the
Yeah.
local Girl
Okay.
Scouts
This needs to
know.
be something internal.
Do you
This is
want,
us.
it
do you
sounds
want it
like
as
it.
the same workshop as the women's club, or are you wanting two different workshops?
It'd be nice if we could do it together.
Do it together, just
Why not?
bring sandwiches.
You
We'll
may
feed
have to
ya.
feed us,
We'll
but
feed
other
ya.
than that, I think we're on
Okay.
board.
Yeah, 'cause it's gonna be a long meeting.
Is everybody, in agreement with that?
Yeah, I don't think they're necessarily wanting to involve the Girl Scouts. They just want to preserve the Girl Scout house.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the history part of it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess if just a little guidance too for the community is to, you know, forming a group or, you know, what, you know, to contact people and, you know, to get them involved in, you know, with the Historical Society and, you know, how do we get the community involved in helping with this decision and planning?
Is there a way that we can mesh the Historical Society with us or have their representative there?
Invite them to the workshop.
Well, it's a
I
public
invite
forum.
her, she's right there.
I'm sure she's coming.
Invite them.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
think you guys will make sure I'm there.
yeah, she'll be here.
We'll reach out
Well,
to
you're-
them and have their board, and
You
ask
said
them to
you were
have
the
their board there.
secretary, right?
Okay.
You said you were the secretary.
secretary.
Well, then, when we find out what date that will
I'll
be.
make sure Vicki knows and she can send it out to her
Will you make sure
board.
that your board
I-
feels
yes, sir.
invited?
Yes, sir.
Please do.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Well, Mr. Khan said he was a Boy Scout. I was a Boy Scout, and the Boy Scout house was right across the road from the Girl Scout house.
Oh, really?
And the county bought the property and tore it down.
That's well
Be gone
done.
for 2
Y'all.
months. So if they get the property, you can
Yeah.
probably
My
say
husband
bye-bye.
Mike was a Boy Scout, and he's president of the historical board,
Yeah.
so, and he was a Boy Scout.
I was a
Yeah.
brownie in that Girl Scout house.
Okay.
A brownie. You know what a brownie
not
is? A
talking-
brownie is before you get to be a Girl Scout.
We're not
Just
talking
saying.
about brownies tonight, we're talking about girls.
All right, moving right along.
I still have my outfit, by the way.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you.
Does it
Moving
fit?
right along.
Yes.
Kathy, you're
It-
going
no, it
to
doesn't
go ahead
fit.
and coordinate
Thanks.
a duel, if you will, workshop for
Absolutely.
the Boys and Girls Club as well as.
I'll send y'all some dates
Scouting
tomorrow.
Hut, and we'll come up with some dates on that.
Yep.
But before we adjourn tonight, we have one final item. And
Yep.
that is the city clerk's business and announcements. I think she wants us
To
vote
pay the
on whether we're gonna
bills.
pay the bills.
So
Yep.
moved.
We have
Second.
And a second from Mr. Stewart. Ms. Haley, call the roll.
Cardile.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yeah.
Stewart.
Yes.
Detman.
Yes, thank you all for being with us this evening. We're adjourned.